Well, whether you love him or you hate him, boy, you got to respect Lane Kiffin's troll game, don't you? Lane Kiffin's troll game is on point. By now, you all know the kind of back and forth that happened on Twitter this week regarding Lane Kiffin and his possible departure from Ole Miss towards Auburn. But John Sokolov, a reporter, I guess, on the Ole Miss beat at Ole Miss, put out a tweet saying basically it's a done deal. Lane Kiffin is leaving Ole Miss. Announcement will be made Friday morning after the Egg Bowl on Thursday. He's taking the head coaching job at Auburn. Well, Lane Kiffin sees it, retweets it with the caption that says, basically, this is news to me. You need to check your sources or whatever. Kind of a little funny back and forth there on Twitter. I'm going to talk about the Egg Bowl, the Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. Ole Miss is favored by about 1.5, depending on where you look. We're going to talk about the game in a second, but the Lane Kiffin to Auburn thing, I'm going to be honest. At this point, I've got no idea if he's leaving to take the Auburn job or some other job or staying at Ole Miss. I've got no idea. I do think we'll find out tomorrow. Here's the thing in these situations. I don't know what a coach is supposed to do here. I really don't know what Lane Kiffin is supposed to come out and say. And let me tell you kind of what I mean. Once rumors get this big and widespread, and we've just seen so many scenarios over the years of coaches saying one thing and doing another. Everybody loves to point out the Nick Saban when he was at the Dolphins. I'm not going to be the head coach at Bama. And then the next day he's landing in Tuscaloosa as the head coach at Bama. But there's dozens of situations where this has happened. And people are so jaded now, so cynical towards these types of things. I really don't think it matters what Lane Kiffin comes out and says. If Lane Kiffin would have got up to a podium yesterday and said, I am staying at Ole Miss. I am not taking the Auburn job. I'm the coach of Ole Miss today. I'm going to be the coach of Ole Miss tomorrow. And I'm going to be the coach at Ole Miss next year and going forward. Nobody would believe him. And if he gets up and says, what else? And what else is he supposed to say? You really want Lane Kiffin to get up on a podium Wednesday of a game week and go, I'm taking the Auburn job. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and coach the Egg Bowl, but come Friday morning, I'm out. It's a no-win situation for coaches when they get here. I really think the best thing for coaches to do in these situations is probably not to say anything about it at all. Apparently, he's had a couple of meetings with the team this past week where he has addressed the situation. The first one is that, I'm the head coach at Ole Miss, and we're preparing for the Egg Bowl. Well, okay, duh. Then he comes out, I guess yesterday, it comes out that he had a meeting with the team where he said, I'm going to be the coach at Ole Miss next year, unless things change. Well, no shit, dummy. So I don't know. Ole Miss has offered him a raise and a contract extension up to $9 million a year. $9.5 million by some reports. That would make him one of the highest paid coaches in the country. Auburn, I'm sure, if Lane Kiffin really is the guy they want, would match or exceed that. And one thing to keep in mind is that there are some state laws in Mississippi that prevent a school like Ole Miss from giving Lane Kiffin one of these 10-year contracts that coaches seem to want these days, right? Take the Jimbo Fisher deal. There's been several of these 10-year contracts where these schools are giving these coaches a ridiculous amount of money for an insane length of time, and the money is guaranteed. And this is a whole separate issue I can make a video on. I don't have a problem with coaches making $9 or $10 million a year. I don't care what people make. Get what you can get. The problem is the length of the contract, right? There ain't no sense in giving no coach no 10-year contract. Because if the coach wants to leave, he's going to leave. It doesn't matter whether the contract is for 1 year, 10 years, or 100 years. If the coach wants to leave, they're going to leave. Brian Kelly was under contract at Notre Dame. Didn't matter. Left for LSU. Lincoln Riley was under contract at Oklahoma. Didn't matter. Left for Southern Cal. We see it all the time. So as a school, when you give a coach one of these 10-year contracts, all you're doing is potentially hurting yourself. Look at Texas A&M. They want to fire Jimbo Fisher. You know they do. They can't afford it, and it's their fault because they did one of these 10-year contracts. Well, in Mississippi, you're not allowed to do that. No state employee in Mississippi can be given a contract longer than 5 years. Well, that's a negative against Ole Miss in the coaching world because a guy like Lane can go to Auburn. There's nothing stopping Auburn from giving Lane one of these ridiculous 10-year contracts. And here's the deal. You say, well, Lane Kiffin don't stay nowhere for 10 years. That doesn't matter. If you get a 10-year contract from one of these universities, that money is guaranteed. You can go 0-12. It doesn't matter. They have to pay you all that money for 10 friggin' years. That's why Jimbo Fisher is still at A&M. Because it's not just that they owe him $10 million for coaching every year. If they fire him, they owe him the entire value of the contract. So this is the problem. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't have any idea what Lane Kiffin's going to do. It won't surprise me one bit if he's to coach at Ole Miss next year. It won't surprise me one bit if he's to coach at Auburn next year. It won't surprise me one bit if he's to coach somewhere else next year. This has just become the norm in college football coaching, and particularly with Lane Kiffin. The guy was at Tennessee, leaves, goes to Southern Cal, leaves there, goes to the NFL, leaves there, goes to FAU or whatever it was, 2-3 years. Now he's at Ole Miss, his third year there. He's kind of a nomad. He's kind of a wanderer. I don't think anybody will be shocked. I don't. And, we can debate all day what is Auburn a better job than Ole Miss? Auburn is a better head coaching job than Ole Miss. It just is. I know Auburn's terrible right now, and they're sandwiched between Georgia and Bama, and they've got issues with the boosters. I get all that. But if you just take everything into account, everything into consideration, past success, history, tradition, money, facilities, recruiting base, whatever you want to look at, Auburn holds an advantage in almost every single area over Ole Miss. It's just a better overall job. So what's Lane Kiffin going to do? I don't know. Now let's get on to the Egg Bowl. This is one of my favorite rivalry games every single year during this week of the year, rivalry week. I'll admit I don't completely understand the hatred that Ole Miss and Mississippi State have for each other. It appears to be worse than the Iron Bowl. Just the absolute disgust that each school has for the other is amazing. You see a lot of fights in this game, and even when you don't see fights, there's a lot of pushing and talking and barking and yelling at each other back and forth and that kind of thing. It's just one of the nastiest, just most bitter rival games every single year. And I know Ole Miss has had a couple of good years in a row now, and hell, even Mississippi State has had a couple of good years over the last decade or so. But generally speaking, these are two pretty lowly football programs overall, I'm talking, in the SEC in most years. I'm not saying now. They've been okay lately, but even if, going back however many years you want to go back, when these teams were busy winning 4 and 5 games a year, this game was still like must-watch TV. I love the fact that this is the game that comes on Thanksgiving night. I'm not much of an NFL guy. I watch the NFL from time to time, but I'm much more of a college fan. So the fact that they give us a college game on Thanksgiving in prime time, and the fact that it's this one, I love that. I know everybody has different Thanksgiving plans and schedules and things like that, but we generally do our big Thanksgiving dinner somewhere around 3, 4, 5 o'clock or whatever. So about the time that all that's wrapping up, Uncle Luke can head home and watch the Egg Bowl. It's become part of my Thanksgiving tradition, and I'm obviously not an Ole Miss or Mississippi State fan, but I like that this is the game they're giving us on Thanksgiving. These teams have had, Ole Miss has been good this year, not great. Mississippi State, I think, has been maybe a little bit less than that. But both teams are okay this year. Mike Leach at Mississippi State, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It's an interesting kind of offense sort of matchup, right? Lane Kiffin is undefeated in this game during his time at Ole Miss. He's, 2-0, I guess? Mike Leach, 0-2. And we'll see what that means for tonight. This game is, where's this game at? This game is at Ole Miss. At Ole Miss. Which matters a little. I mean, if you're a Mississippi State fan, it's not like that's too far for you to make the trip, but there will be more Ole Miss fans. It's home game for Ole Miss tonight. Two totally different styles of football here. Ole Miss, kind of, contrary to sort of what a lot of people might think about Lane Kiffin. Yeah, he's an offensive genius, but Ole Miss is a running team, particularly this year, and they're really, really good at it. They've had, ooh, dang, what's going on here? I'm going to sip of this water here. Yeah, that's better. Particularly this year. I mean, they're one of, if not the best rushing teams in the SEC. Zach Evans and Judkins have been amazing for Ole Miss this year. Whereas, of course, Mississippi State almost acts like the running game doesn't even exist. I mean, they average 45 passes a game. Mississippi State, under Mike Leach, averaged 45 passes a game. Low spread in this game, and I expect this to be a close, tight game. I'm going to be honest with you. After what I saw last week from Ole Miss, especially the way they started, they had just the one loss. They were 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, or whatever. The Bama game comes around. They had an opportunity to win that game and probably should have won it. And sort of shot themselves in the foot at the end there with a bad penalty that they took down near the goal line. And then, of course, the QB gets sacked, and it's kind of game over after that. But I feel like Ole Miss just had so much riding on that game that when they lost it, it was sort of a blow that they have not been able to get over. They looked really bad last week. Definitely the worst game they've played last week. I think that combined with the Lane Kiffin rumors, I do think the Lane Kiffin rumors are having an impact and an effect on that team. It's hard to see how it couldn't, right? You got a ton of kids there who were either recruited by Lane out of high school. I mean, you got to keep in mind, anybody that's been on that team for 2 years or less has known nothing but Lane Kiffin. Everybody on the team has had him for 2 years. He brought in a ton of transfers last offseason. I mean, imagine you're a college kid playing wherever around the country, and you get a call from Lane Kiffin. He wants you in the portal at Ole Miss. You make the move to go, and now you're sitting around going, damn, I moved here for him, and now he's about to leave. I'm not saying he is leaving, but the rumors, I mean, you can't escape it. It's everywhere on TV, on the internet, on Twitter, Facebook posts, YouTube videos. You can't escape it. And that's trickling down into the locker room. And I haven't heard really Lane Kiffin say anything that would kind of ease those fears. And again, getting back to the beginning of the video, I don't know that there's anything he could say. These rumors and sort of gossipy type stories, when they get this big, they just take on a life of their own. And at this point, I really don't know if it matters what Lane Kiffin says. There's just, it is having an effect on the team, though, in my opinion. I mean, all you got to do is watch last week's game compared to any other game they played this year to see that. And I get that this is a big game. It's a rivalry game, in-state rivalry. It's the whole, if we're going to go 1-11, let the one win be in this game. I just can't trust Ole Miss right now after what I saw last week to pick them to win in this game. I think Mississippi State will be the more motivated team tonight, and I think they go in and get a win against Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. I do think it'll be a good game, a close game. Could come down to a last possession type of deal. And it's a very interesting game to me to watch, just in the contrast of styles offensively, on top of the fact that, hell, you got to watch the Egg Bowl. You can see a fight at any minute. But anyway, I guess let me know down below two things. Who do you think wins the Egg Bowl tonight? Is it going to be Ole Miss or is it going to be Mississippi State? I guess I'm going to go with Mississippi State. And will Lane Kiffin be the coach of Ole Miss tomorrow? Or is this it for Lane Kiffin? Let me know down below. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I got a couple of more of these coming up today, some preview videos, Florida State game. I'm streaming the Egg Bowl tonight, so if y'all are going to be watching it, come back to the channel tonight. Think comes on at 7. I'll be live streaming during the Egg Bowl tonight, so come watch the Egg Bowl with us, hang out in the comments section. Again, tomorrow night for the Florida State game, I'll be doing the same thing, so need to make a preview of that game too. Have a good morning.